Awesome. So, hey, thank you so much for taking some time out of your, I'm sure, very hectic schedule to chat with me.
No
Um,
worries.
yeah, it's been really fun watching you and Pentanet play against some of the best teams in the world and actually take some games from them. So, how's everything been with the travel to Iceland and everything?
Um, I mean, the travel wasn't too fun, right? Like it was a good like 2-day adventure. It was like pretty hectic, and then the quarantine kind of sucked for a while. Like we just kind of stuck inside for however long, even though we're in this beautiful country. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's all good now. We have the freedom to do what we want, and we're not too worried about what's going on. So it's a nice time now, but it
Great.
was definitely rough at the start.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. What's solo queue been like going from OC back to EU West now?
Um, it's nice that my games like actually pop now. I don't have to like sit around. Like I can actually just like keep playing, It's good. It's a nice feeling for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still kind of in the dregs at the moment. I got a bit more climbing to do before I'm really in some quality games. So,
Hmm.
we're on the way up.
What LP are you at?
I'm at about 500 LP right now, so about
Okay.
120 away from Challenger.
Ah, okay, okay, nice. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get there soon. I've been seeing some of your tweets with some of the games, but yeah, like any solo queue environment, it's sometimes tilting, sometimes good.
Absolutely.
So, how long have you been playing League?
I've been playing since. Ooh, I can't remember the specific year, but I would have been like 13-ish, so about 8 years now.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't very good at the start, but ever since I was like 15, I've been a challenger level player.
Wow.
I was competing like I qualified for the OPL when I was 15, but I was too young to play.
Sure.
So I've been a top level player for the last 5 or 6 years.
Were you always a jungler?
No, I started off as a top laner.
Mm,
And I was like one of those highly mechanical like Riven Camille Fiora players. Like
okay. I
I was just one of those flashy mechanics players. And yeah, so I've only been a jungler for like I guess officially about a year now, but I probably started learning a year and a half ago.
Dang. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I feel like a lot of I mean, especially in NA too, a lot of the really young talent that I've seen kind of online that isn't on a pro team yet, they're basically top laners who play like Irelia, they play Riven, like all those champs. But I think when you're young and you can learn the mechanics like that, that really helps you later on because now I'm sure when you play the mechanically intensive junglers, it's not nowhere near as I guess mechanically demanding.
Yeah, once you start like learning the harder stuff, like going down towards the easier stuff is always easy, but
Hmm.
it's also like even though you can play something on a mechanical level, like developing the understanding is always quite hard. Because one of the things with the
Hmm.
mechanical champions, like your Aurelias, your Yasuo's, is if you have better mechanics than the other player, like this translates almost directly into damage, right? If
Sure.
you can use your hands correctly, but you're playing like Ivern, like if you have better mechanics than the other guy, you're not going to eke out any more damage. You have to use your brain, so it can still be difficult to pick up some of these simpler champions, even if you're a strong mechanical player.
Yeah, that makes sense. Who's your favorite champion to play if you had to pick one?
Um, at the moment, I'm really enjoying Fiddlesticks. I think that champion is hilarious.
I,
I
I
just
I saw
yeah,
you post a recent picture about that.
oh yeah, I've definitely. It's not the best champion in solo queue. Like if you can scale safely, it's good. But often the game is over before you reach level 6, and you're kind of not a champion before level 6. So
Got it. Yeah, his ganks when you get there are pretty disgusting though.
absolutely, yeah. I
Yeah.
love because you know how like a lot of dashes or a lot of blinks. Sorry, if you can cast over halfway over the wall, it goes all the way over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use that to go over like the fat wall on like the red side of bot lane.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can ult like maybe 70% of the way across it, but
Mm-hmm.
because you can do that, like you just cross like a huge amount of distance and gap close onto the ball lane. It's kind of crazy.
I'm gonna write that down. Are we gonna see some fiddle potentially in MSI?
I mean, I've already played it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it definitely could come out again. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see.
It'd be
It's
nice.
kind of specific, but
Sure. Yeah,
it's
it'd be
decent
nice.
champion for sure.
I really like that the meta right now is opening, I think, a lot of doors, right? So we're getting out of that Hecarim Udyr meta. Thank God, finally.
Yeah, the chem tank champions were super oppressive, and right
Yeah.
now, like for example, like Morgana is extremely popular, and she's not like she clears really fast and she's really
Hmm.
strong, but she's not the kind of jungler like ruin your day. You can kind of safely scale against her, so you can get
Sure.
some like interesting picks to come out.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that makes sense because when you have a fed Morgana, it's not as overwhelmingly scary as like some of the other champs that people could pull out, and her ganks are. I mean, with that clear, obviously it allows her to gank really quickly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what are some champs that you kind of like against Morgana?
I mean, you can play heaps of things into Morgana, but
Hmm.
like Fiddlesticks is one that I said that can easily come out. Like Karthus, you can play Karthus.
Hmm.
You can play Diana, you can play Evelynn. Like,
So I'm sensing the
it,
AP, the AP counter.
um, well, AD junglers just kind of fucking suck right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's not many that you can actually play that are like reasonable. Everyone's playing like Volibear, but that champion is dog. Like,
Really.
it's so yeah. AD junglers are like in the gutter right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Like the best one is Kindred, but she gets like Goomba stomped by a lot of champions right now. Like playing Kindred against Tristana really sucks. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
playing Kindred against Varus sucks. Playing Kindred against heaps of things kind of sucks. So it's really hard to pick AD from your jungle right now.
That makes sense. Yeah, and obviously with the chem tank nerfs, we're not seeing as many just tank junglers either. So, yeah, that sounds interesting. It's definitely shifted the meta. How do you feel about Riot kind of doing that? Like, especially with the newest patch, right? Completely revamping how jungle works. How's that affected your practice schedule?
I think it's really annoying, but it's not the worst. I don't think that the jungle meta changed too much because of the EXP changes. It's not the
Hmm.
worst. You can still play full clear. Um, But I actually had an instance in today's scrims because they changed how your smite damage works. It's
Hmm.
450 from level 1, and then at
Yeah,
like, I can't remember, it's like level 9 or something, it increases to
yeah.
900.
It's like
And
when
I
you
remember that,
complete it, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
I've played, so I've played like, well, like a few games on the patch. And then I was invading enemy jungle today, and I saw the camp go below 450, and I smited it, but my smite only did 430, so they last hit it afterwards, and I'm like, huh,
Ah,
like,
what?
I've actually messed up like a smite steal because I was getting used to what like live was, right? And I was
Yeah.
just like, huh, yeah. I was so confused in the moment, then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, like that's not what my smite does.
Yeah, that and it's those tiny interactions that could definitely swing a single game, but that must have been a little bit like frustrating, and you have to probably remember that when you actually get on stage, it's going to be that previous patch and everything.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, have you guys been scrimming all the other teams right now, or is it kind of like you guys been set with a few, like just the people
Um,
left?
we got a few, but we
Okay.
haven't like yeah, we haven't scrimmed everybody, of course. We've scrimmed a
Hmm.
few teams. I don't,
Hmm.
don't want to like leak too much about it, but
Sure, sure.
we've had some quality scrims. Like the teams that we get to play against, we surprisingly get to play against like some very good teams. So
Yeah, I think that's the coolest thing about these international tournaments is when you go, you get to play against RNG, you get to play against Damwon, and then how do you feel like going once this is all over, you're going to go back to OC and have all of this experience now playing against some very very high quality teams. I mean, I feel like that's a huge advantage for you guys as well.
yeah, I mean, if we don't go back and crush OC, I would be extremely surprised.
We'll expect it in the summer split then for sure.
Of course.
Yeah. So what was your path to pro? Like, I know you said you weren't able to play obviously when you first were eligible because of age, but were
Mhm.
you heavily scouted? Were you recruited as soon as you were able, or did you play on? What was that like?
Um, so I was just like playing throughout high school, right? And just kind of playing with my mates.
Hmm.
And just kind of, like pissing around in like diamond tournaments. But eventually, we like climbed up the ranked fives ladder and qualified into like the challenger series. And then we randomly made it all the way to like promotions.
Mm.
And then we lost that, but then we won the next one. So it was like bit of a journey up, but so I was just kind of stuck in school. I had some teams like ask me like if I wanted to play, but I just had to tell them no because I was like not of age. I
Sure.
had a few like quality like top tier teams like wanting to replace, or like their top laner was like retiring, or like they were moving through, and they're like, "Do you want to play?" And I'm like, "I cannot." And so that was kind of disappointing, honestly. I had some like really good team offers that I could have potentially been in line for.
Yeah.
Um, but then yeah, once I was of age, I was just kind of like chilling. I wasn't on a main roster on a team because I couldn't commit. I was still doing high school, but team wanted to replace their top laner because their top laner was underperforming, and so in the last year of high school, I was like flying in and flying out. I was like staying in Melbourne, and then on the weekends, I'd fly up to Sydney to play my games for Abyss. And then as soon as I graduated, I just committed to it full time and could
Awesome.
actually fully like get into it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's always kind of was it scary for you to basically drop everything else and decide I'm going to be a professional gamer?
Um, like not really. it was kind of, I don't know, it was just extremely satisfying. So I wasn't
Yeah.
super like, I know that I still have time to kind of move into everything else in my life, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't feel much pressure to get, yeah, all my, like, my standard career, my academia, like on the road, you know? Like
Hmm.
I feel like I still have plenty of time to continue to excel in that area
I will tell
while I
you,
can.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're definitely young. So I didn't start my career until I was in my 30s. So you got plenty of time. Definitely,
Yeah, absolutely.
pursue the dream as much as you can, win worlds, all that stuff.
I
Um,
mean, we'll see, we'll see.
what are some of the other interests that you have outside of League?
Um, I mean, when you're committed so much to League, it's hard to have so much. And I was very like technologically inclined, I guess, as like a kid. So a lot of my interests have circled around computers.
Hmm.
When I was in high school, I would, I always had like coding on the side. Like web development has been an interest of mine. Like I don't know, like I guess I don't have any like super big interests that I'm super committed to. Um, but most of it is in that area. Like I like to build and I like to create and I kind of like to accomplish things, I guess. So almost
Hmm.
anything in that area is like super interesting to me. But most of that manifested in like learning new skills involving like Photoshop, After Effects, or
Okay.
like yeah, like do all the standard like I made YouTube videos as a kid, like
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff, like the fledgling YouTube channel, like
Yeah.
yeah, all of that was like kind of where my interests lie is just like kind of just random creation in the technological space.
Yeah. Is content creation something you're considering too? Doing more streams, YouTube videos, tutorials, that kind of stuff.
Uh, Possibly. Uh, it really depends on how I feel about it after my career ends, I guess,
Yeah.
after I stop trying to compete at the highest level, because while you're trying to compete, it's really hard to hold such motivation towards something like that
Sure.
because it's just like any time I spend, putting effort into becoming a good streamer or putting
Mhm.
effort into making quality YouTube videos is just not towards like the like ultimate goal of
Mhm.
becoming the best player I can be, and it's hard to justify that, you know?
Yeah.
It's like if I'm truly putting in the effort to be the best player that I can be, like I can't really commit much time to these things.
Yeah.
At
That
least
that yeah.
I wouldn't feel like I was doing the right thing, you know?
That's something I've heard from a lot of pros is the reason they don't stream that often or do that kind of stuff is because it detracts from playing League as practice and it becomes playing League for entertainment.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really agree with that personally
Hmm.
because I just feel drained. Um, I don't
Okay.
feel like I can be a good entertainer after a good 6, 7 hours of scrims, you know?
Sure.
Like
Yeah. That's very tough.
yeah, like it's so hard to be bubbly and energetic and interactive and fun and entertaining after I put so much like of my own effort into
Hmm.
like the intense practice, trying to make the most of that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I personally don't stream so much. It's not because I don't like I feel like I can still play very well when I'm streaming. It's just
Hmm.
hard for me to entertain, I guess.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, it's a different focus for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, inevitable. Well, once you decide if that is a route you go, I think you do very well, though. You already have, I think, a very unique personality and look. The hair for sure. Like you already have a brand. Like I feel like, your brand is already established, and you kind of just got started on the international stage. So hopefully, we
Absolutely.
see you a lot more there. So what's been the greatest challenge for you in coming up?
Greatest challenge. I think I mean, there's a bunch of things, but being like cognition of the things that actually inhibit yourself is probably like being aware of your challenges is probably the most challenging thing.
Hmm.
Like, what's the way to put it? Like, I think a really big one that a lot of players underlook is like their own mental health, right? An even more obvious one is physical health.
Mhm.
But I think probably a more relevant one for me at least is mental health. I know that I perform way better when I'm physically healthy, and I'm like letting myself down in that department in a few ways, but. I think that like players properly assessing their mental health is like it I guess kind of like the grind mentality, the
Yeah.
a lot of things are surrounding that, like hustle mentality, all that kind of shit just like really leads to players, I mean, burnout is like overused a bit, but like players will kind of act with the understanding that they have to sacrifice themselves to be the best player they can be, which is
Hmm.
just like factually untrue and often detrimental to their own performance.
Hmm. Yeah.
And realizing how you're doing that and actually taking steps against that is extremely difficult. And over the years, like I still inhibit myself in many different ways, but over the years I've realized like, like I play this year and then I think about it in retrospect and then I figure out this like really stupid thing that I was doing the entire time that
Hmm.
was like really impacting my performance. And like every year it's just like a new thing that's like shit, like this really stopped me from being a lot better.
Hmm. Yeah.
I guess it's just kind of like a journey. It's like it's hard to be specific because it's very different from year to year. But
Yeah.
I would, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that would stop me from being as good as I could be. That it was, and it's like being aware of that is like extremely difficult, especially in the moment. It's very
Hmm.
easy to just kind of keep going when you need more perspective to become better.
Yeah, it's great that you're so self-aware already, though. Does Pentanet have a sports performance coach or like a sports psychologist at all on staff?
No, um, I mean that might be something in the future, but at the moment,
Hmm.
Australian esports is not the most how would you say? It's not extremely profitable, so
Sure.
it's super hard to
So
justify
not
such investment.
they don't have as much resources available. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
at the
might
moment.
I might actually be able to connect you with some people that maybe could at least chat with you guys and you guys can
Hmm.
maybe work something out. But what about
Cool.
you mentioned the physical health side too? Assuming that you don't have PTs or any sort of physical training and all that available as well.
Yeah, no, nothing of the sort. And our league is online at the moment, so we're
Ah,
not
okay.
like we're not all physically located like together.
Got
So,
it. Got it.
um,
And you mentioned that you actually believe physical health is important, which is something I don't hear too often actually from most players who haven't had access to it. What's your routine like? How do you stay? You said not right now, obviously, but when you're at home, how do you stay physically active and healthy?
I mean, there's a bunch of things that play into it. Of course. I mean, like, probably the primary one for most people that is like sleep, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people have really terrible sleep hygiene, caffeine, like poor caffeine habits, just like a lot of things that really impact the quality of their sleep. And
Hmm.
just, I mean, there's a lot of science in like the area of like physical performance, right? And like the science behind sleep, like you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you like screw your sleep over. So making
Yes.
sure that I get sleep at a reasonable time and also that I get outside so I feel tired eventually because if I don't go outside I will not like I will I if I don't go outside I will be awake for too long. I noticed that if I stay inside I sleep on like a 26 like my internal cycle is like too slow. I will if I go to sleep at like 10 p.m. one day and then I don't go outside I will get tired at 11 p.m. the next day and then
Hmm.
12 p.m. the next day and I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a thing called the diurnal cycle where sunlight is very has a huge effect on a specific organ in your brain. The
Yeah, it helps produce
Yeah.
melatonin, I think.
Yeah, the pituitary gland, all that stuff.
Hmm.
But it's very important, yeah, absolutely, to get outside, to remember that as human beings, we're animals at the base of it, right? We function off of certain light cycles, night cycles, that kind of stuff. And but unfortunately, with technology, we're able to live inside all day. It's created a very difficult situation for a lot of people with trying to regulate that stuff. So I think you're on top of it. I mean, that's great that you're already aware of that kind of stuff, and you've again self-reflected and understand what it takes for you to function at your best. That's something a lot of players can definitely learn from.
Yeah, I noticed it's borderline impossible for me to feel well rested if I sleep too late.
Hmm.
Um, not necessarily the amount that I sleep, but like if I go to sleep at 4 a.m. and I have 10 hours sleep, I will feel way worse than if I slept at 1 a.m. and got up at like 8.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research to back that up. Not it's not the number of hours. It's also if your body's not ready to go into REM sleep and get that deep sleep, it just 10 hours is not the same thing. So it's
Yeah,
it's really
absolutely.
interesting. Yeah. Do you keep a pretty consistent schedule when possible? Like, do you always kind of regulate, like, I need to be in bed by this time and then wake up at this time?
Yeah, I mean, like it will fluctuate, of course, because there's a few different motivators behind it.
Hmm.
More recently, I've been trying to go to sleep like at the same time as my girlfriend, who works
Hmm.
a regular 9 to 5.
Hmm.
So that kind of keeps me human, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but for example, like we have like late games, so sometimes it makes more sense for me to go to sleep at a later time,
Hmm.
so that I'm like, yeah, so that my schedule is adjusted for that. But for the most part, it's like pretty consistent. It really fluctuates, I guess, almost with my mental health, like my level
Hmm.
of motivation and self-discipline, and just kind of how I'm feeling. Like I don't know, if I'm more unhappy at the current time, like it's far easier to fall into poor patterns.
Hmm.
But if I'm like very happy and motivated, I will keep be much stricter on the things that I think are
Yeah,
important.
that's great. And then do you do any exercise? Like, do you run? Do you lift weights? Any of that stuff?
Um, it's a bit fleeting at the moment. I do have like a few plans that I get into. I always go at least outside for like a fairly decent walk. I will like walk down to the supermarket. I don't even buy anything. I'll just go.
That's
Um,
good. Yeah.
but like,
I think that's helped me the most
uh,
is getting a dog. So it forces me to have to take him out all the time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I do have periods of going to the gym, but I'm currently on a bit of a downswing in that regard.
Hmm.
But I think lifting weights is probably the most fun for me.
Okay.
It makes me feel good, and I like it. The way that it makes me look good is like
Yeah. Yeah.
probably it's a big motivator for me.
Yeah. I think for most guys, when you start lifting weights and you actually start seeing muscle develop, it's like, oh shoot, like this actually works. It's
Yeah,
like
no,
your
it's
your
kind of
body
cracked.
knows what to
Like,
do. Yeah. So did you play any games prior to playing League competitively or?
I was never like I was never to the point of it being a profession, but
Mhm.
I've been extremely good at video games almost my entire life.
Hmm.
I was very good at like Call of Duty when I was younger.
Mhm.
Um, and then I played this extremely niche game. You might have heard of it. It's called Tori Bash.
Tori.
Tori Bash. Have
Not
you heard
no,
of it?
actually I've never heard of it.
Okay. It's this turn-based fighting game where you basically every turn you manipulate all the joints of the body to either be extended, contracting,
Oh
held, or
man.
relaxed. And then and
What?
then it progresses a certain amount of frames. And it's like a martial arts game where you just control all of the joints.
I just looked it up. This is sick. I
Yeah, yeah, no.
I feel
The
like
player base is dwindling, but it's a really cool game.
okay,
Um,
okay. This is
it's a
as a
Yeah,
physical therapist, I'm nerding out right now. This
yeah,
this
no, no,
looks
it's
awesome.
sick, it's sick.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to try that.
I used to play that all the time, and then I was very good at Team Fortress 2,
Okay, okay.
and then after TF2 it's just been League.
I do feel like a commonality that I've heard with a lot of pro players that I've interviewed from mostly League, but a
Hmm.
lot of games, it's like you have a natural inclination for a lot of different games because like Call of Duty is not related to League at all. Like there's nothing
Yeah, absolutely.
similar at all about it. But I know a lot of other LCS players who were like, hey, when Valorant came out, they hit top 10% within the first week. I'm like, that's just crazy. You don't play a shooter, but I do feel like at some point we're going to realize there's some kind of gene or there's some kind of natural talent, like, I've been a gamer my whole life, but I'll be honest, I've never been good at games. I've
Yeah, yeah,
never
yeah.
been in the top 10% of any game. So it's
My
really
own,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, my own personal theory is, I mean, specifically for League at least. League as a game is always changing, right? Like
Hmm.
it gets patched every 2 weeks, and like the meta shifts are like frequent and drastic, right?
Sure.
So the game inherently rewards being able to adapt, being able to theorize, being able to just kind of deal with like new sets of information
Hmm.
and come to your own conclusions.
Hmm.
And since that skill set is rewarded so heavily, it kind of biases the top like league players towards people who are capable of picking up and learning different things.
Hmm.
Um, so like a good League of Legends players will tend to just be good at learning video games, for example, or like I mean, I don't even know if it applies like more generally than just good at learning in general, but at least for becoming good at video games and recognizing this specific type of pattern, like League of Legends rewards that very heavily.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's my theory for why League pros just kind of seem to be able to pick up everything.
That makes sense. And also, League like as a game itself is just so overwhelming with the amount of information that you have to be able to comprehend within a few seconds. I think that's actually why I got into it. I only started playing League a couple of years ago, but
Hmm.
what drew me in was the fact that it's something you can actually study to some extent. It's not just mechanical skill. I'll never be a top level CS:GO player. It just won't happen.
Hmm.
But in League, I won't even be a top level League player. But in League, at least I can tell, oh, I learned something new, and I can directly apply it in game and see the change. Like I just know this one interaction better, right? Like I won't be able to
Yeah.
make that mistake again. So I really enjoy that about the game. One of the guys in the chat, Supreme Josh, he asked if it was in one of the games you banned a Mumu, and he was wondering why.
Was this MSI? I
I'm,
think it was. I think it was.
yeah.
I think I specifically remember. It would have been because we couldn't think of a ban. Um,
Okay,
like,
okay.
well, for us, um, I guess some of our drafts are like, I don't want to say experimental, but like we're kind
Mhm,
of like on the fly. Like it's a situation that we haven't encountered yet, right?
mhm.
Like you can only the amount of variations of a draft go up exponentially as you go down the draft. So
Right.
eventually, like when you get down to there, a lot of different things could have happened. And so we would have just been against something we didn't know what was best for us. And
Sure.
and also we also kind of needed to learn a bit because we didn't have a good grasp of draft. So it's like we don't have a specific ban in this spot. Like we're like say we're banning to protect top, and then we
Mhm.
ban one champion, and then we can't think of like what's a good champion to ban here. So we just have nothing to ban at that point.
Hmm. Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah, so maybe if it's like if they pick a Mumu here, even though most people don't see a Mumu ever in pro play, but if they picked a Mumu, this would be a terrible champion to run into, right, or something.
I mean,
Or was it just
if they want,
alphabetical?
yeah, it's just number one for sure. Like
Okay.
it's sitting there up the top. It's easy to click.
Yeah.
And it probably looks funny if you don't ban anything. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, he was saying he's in a Mumu main, so he was just like, I never thought there would be a day where I see a Namumu ban in pro play. Well, there you
I
go.
mean,
That's awesome.
there you go.
So yeah, in terms of someone who's already in this, right? You play against these teams all the time.
Mhm.
Who do you feel right now is the number one favorite to win this whole thing? Who's been the strongest team in scrims and all that for you guys?
I would be really surprised if RNG doesn't win.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
because
don't even think that's like a sleeper pick.
yeah, well, it's not anything interesting, but we've
Yeah.
we've been like I've played games against Damwon, I've played games against RNG, and Damwon has a bunch of very talented players, but the way that they play the game, it has like a fair few amount of flaws in it. The way that they
Hmm.
strategically approach the game, they
Hmm.
rely on like generating extremely slow leads through Canyon,
Hmm.
and I think that RNG just play the game in a much more like abusive manner. Like you're going to make mistakes and they're going to make you pay for it.
Yeah.
While Damwon Gaming will kind of let things slide to continue playing to plan.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if
yeah,
that's also that's kind of been the stereotypical. I mean, that's been the stereotype of LCL or LCK versus LPL, right? Like that
yeah,
LPL
I
is,
think so.
yeah,
But Damwon Gaming kind of broke the mold.
right,
But
right.
then they started losing after they won Worlds.
Hmm.
And as soon as they started losing, I think they kind of regressed to relying on what could win them games, and that was the way that Canyon would play the game.
Hmm.
So they've regressed to this super jungle focused, super we only do things where Canyon is, we're playing for his camp lead, we're playing for
Hmm.
how he's going to play through the game. And so it's just very slow, methodical. They don't like make big mistakes in that area, but
Hmm.
they also don't punish things that they really need to.
Yeah, it's like that, classic LCK of like, let's scale up, let's win lanes, let's take
Yeah.
objectives. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's most disappointing because Damwon wasn't like that before.
right. And yeah, they really haven't changed too many players around or anything, so you kind
Yeah.
of expect to see that from the world's champions, but maybe they'll turn it around. I think the MSI is going into a phase where now like everything really really matters, and maybe some of these teams have been kind of holding stuff back, obviously because they
Yeah.
figured they were going to make it out of the group stage. But I'm really excited. Who do you think? What's a matchup you're really looking forward to playing?
Um, I mean all of them, of course.
Yeah.
I think we can basically, as long as we get human drafts, we can very easily take games off of every team that's not
Yeah.
Damwon Gaming and RNG.
Yeah.
Like Damwon Gaming and RNG just have like such talented players that it's hard to skill check them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that's not like a slight on like everybody else. Everybody else is very talented players, but the players from Damwon and RNG are just like kind of next level.
I think that's what
Um,
we've seen with that first game, that the opener, right? Cloud9 versus Damwon. every analyst I follow was like Cloud9 won this. Like that draft should crush Damwon, and I think Damwon just came out and mechanically just beat them in every team fight. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of rough sometimes when
Yeah,
you go into like I don't know, you have a draft that favors you and you take a fight that favors you, but they just played better and you lose. It's a bit
yeah,
demoralizing sometimes.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think the Mad Lions are fucking good, and I'm super excited to play against Mad Lions because
yeah.
I mean, hopefully we don't get crushed too hard, but like
No,
they're kind of sick. I think they will. I mean, everyone's kind of hyped for the Mad Lions, but I think a few good coin flips and they will go very far.
yeah, I agree. I think Mad Lions are a team that's not afraid to skill check. They don't care who you are. They'll team fight it. Like they'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when someone in my chat, Noxwar, asked, in consideration with the OCE region, do you see that your advancement to the Rumble stage is a revitalization of the region, or a potentially new era for OCE League of Legends, or do you believe that the region will stay kind of the same, more or less?
Um, well, I mean, our performance doesn't really change like much about us. Like, hopefully it brings more attention, and hopefully that it like it does like invigorate the region somewhat. But
Hmm.
a lot of the structural issues surrounding Earth will take a long time to fix, regardless of how many games we won or lost here.
Hmm.
So I think that it's going to be like kind of a very long rebuilding phase for us. And I mean, there are good people in the scene that I think will get it done, but however many games we win at MSI, it doesn't really change like how long that rebuilding is going to take.
Yeah, I think the OS region has been in the spotlight a lot lately, even outside of MSI, because I mean, obviously Cloud9, right, is made up of a ton of OCE players, and they've done very very well on the academy and even on the LCS team now. So I think there's definitely clearly there's talent in the region. What was the struggle like for you guys though, being in that region when Riot announced that they're shutting it down?
I mean, it was very like there's a lot of variance in our life at that point in time.
Hmm.
We heard the whispers like initially of something coming, but we don't know we don't know if it's going to be reasonable to rely on that for your living, or if we're going to have to, if we're going back to university, if we can even like bother playing.
Hmm.
I was very much assessing my options in terms of just like career shit. Like
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
very much convinced that like it was pretty much over.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, it was super cool that we got this opportunity to continue playing and like
yeah,
could reasonably like invest ourselves back into it.
yeah.
But for a long time there, I definitely did not think this was possible.
Are you considering potentially even moving? Like, if let's say an LCS team wanted to pick you up or something like that for academy, is that potentially an option for you?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Of course, it's always going to depend on the specifics of the offer, but
yeah,
it's definitely on the cards if it does come.
yeah. Is your girlfriend a gamer as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, she.
She mostly plays World of Warcraft, but she
Okay,
does play League as well.
that's awesome. Yeah, so she actually appreciates like what it is that you do.
Oh yeah, she has a complete understanding of
Yeah,
what
that's
I do.
great. I feel like my wife is not on that level, and so sometimes I tell her like, "Look, I'm working with this team. Like Cloud9 is it's like a big deal," and she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know." She's like,
Yeah,
why do you spend time on this?" But yeah, I love it. It's cool that you have someone supportive of you and can stay up late to watch you play, and yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sure that helps. What do you have any other esports that you are interested in or watch outside of League? Obviously not during in
Um,
season, but.
Not too much,
Mhm.
but like if there was anything that I would say is really cool, I like fighting games. Like fighting games kind of just like trigger the dopamine in my brain as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree because it's like that is like in my opinion the most classic esport, right? You got two people stepping up and they're gonna fight each other in a game. It's the easiest to understand. Like there's,
yeah.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
I don't know, just something about the way you interact in a fighting game is
Yeah,
just so like I don't know how to phrase it, but it just feels good to execute and feels good to watch as well.
it's the exact opposite of League where it's one on one. Nobody can help you. If you lose, it's purely on you. Like you can't blame anybody else.
It is true.
Yeah, but if you win, you
Uh,
definitely beat that person.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. So, I always like to ask this of pros too. Who do you think is the best player in the world right now of any position?
That's a really hard question to answer, I think. Um, It's probably Ming.
Ming. Okay, that's a new one.
Yes. Um, because I don't think any of the RNG players are objectively the best player in the world.
Hmm.
Because I look at every player on RNG and I think they all have like kind of pretty big holes in certain areas,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just so good at everything else that like I don't know. It's like a say if IG were here, it's like even if the Shy is looking insane, it's still kind of hard to call him the best player in the world
Right.
because like if it's a good Dr. Mundo spot, the Shy's never gonna lock in Dr. Mundo, like that's just kind of how I feel about it. And I think
Yeah.
that the way Ming plays the game, he's so cognition of what's occurring, and his like holistic understanding of where to be on the map is just so insane. And he'll like, I don't know, like we just had games where I mean we play against RNG
Mm-hmm.
and we'd be
Mm-hmm.
able to do things early game, and we just like I don't know. Like they'd make a play bot and we'd make a play top, but like Ming would just show up as we're diving the top laner, and we're just like,
Yeah.
all right, like
Like, why are you
I,
here?
yeah, it's like the way that he can read the map and understand what he can do inside of the game is very, very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's very
Yeah.
good at his engaged champions. So
Yeah, I do think that support is one of those roles that a lot of people value very, very highly. If you have a good support, the game is so much easier, right? Like
absolutely,
even in the LCS, I think a lot of times people, when they ask consent, like who's the best LCS player overall, it's usually Core JJ. Like that's the name that's thrown out the most quickly because he just influences the game so much. But
yeah, it's very oppressive when the enemy support has good understanding of how to play the game.
hmm hmm yeah, that's great. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking time. I know you're a busy person. You got some more scrims today, or are you guys done?
It's 9 p.m., so
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think we'll have any more scrims, but there's solo queue night.
Some solo queue. Yeah. How long do you solo queue for after scrims?
Um, I mean, it really depends. Everyone kind of sticks on their own schedule depending on how long they like to sleep, how long they when they get up.
hmm It
But
depends how long it takes for you to get inted and flamed.
I mean, yeah. I mean, how many days have I been here for? I don't know how many days that I've been here for, but I have 146 games on EU West at the moment.
Wow.
And everyone's around that mark.
Yeah.
I think Az is probably 5 or so higher than me, and Mark's probably like 20 lower than me. But yeah, everyone's around the like probably on average like 10 or 12 games a day.
Okay. Okay. The last few questions I have are just kind of any like tips for aspiring professionals. Maybe some kid who's out there right now is 15, looking to go pro. Any advice for them?
Um, I mean, there's nothing too specific, but it's always just like always be thinking about like the next thing that's like distracting you, right? And like I don't mean that in like, like, oh, like having friends is distracting me, having a girlfriend is distracting me. Like, you can only commit so much time to the game, but
hmm
when you're committing this time, like, you will be wasting your own time, like, so often. It's quite unreal. Like, like, you might mentally check out of games, or you might spend time flaming people, or you might spend time thinking about what other people can do better, but like, you can always put the extra responsibility on yourself. And even when you're in team environments, like even if you're doing everything perfectly, you can always be doing more to be assisting the people around you,
hmm
and that's what's going to make you the best player you can be. Like the best player in the world, like if you're on a team with Bjergsen, like
hmm
you're not on a team with just the player Bjergsen, you're on a team with the teammate Bjergsen, right? Like
Right.
like that's like same with like Perks, for example. Like you want to be on a team with Perks, not because you have to play with Perks, but because Perks is your teammate.
hmm
Like that like being more than just a player is really important, and always understanding that there's like more to be done, and you will always be focusing on bullshit and to try and like get rid of that, because
Yeah.
like I don't know, I've been a pro for like what 5 years, and there's still things that I focus on that are an absolute waste of my time.
Yeah.
So there'll always be new things to move past, and always be better things to move towards.
Sure. I actually I love that video that Pentanet just put out recently of you guys, your voice comms, and telling was it telling
Uh,
decoy like hey, like you were showing behind the scenes of like what it takes to be a teammate, not just a good League of Legends player, right? You're it's the game is over, we need to focus on the next one. How do we get everyone mentally on the same page again and 100% present? I think a lot of people were seeing that side of it for the first time, and it was really cool that they put that video out. Another comment. Noxwar wanted to know, in your opinion, do you think Rumble is actually a good jungler? Because
yeah, it's pretty cracked.
That's what I've
I
heard
think
from everybody. I was like, that freak
yeah.
video, I think, is, or that freak post
Well, I
is.
think that his opinions have some merit to them, but
Hmm.
they completely lack context.
Hmm.
Like, just because Rumble is not that great, like let's think about but he's kind of like I mean I haven't watched his new video, so I'm kind of talking out of my ass a bit, and I'm
Hmm.
only referring to what I've already read, but kind of like the supposition is that Rumble is like a good mid laner, right?
Hmm.
But part of the context of Rumble is that he both needs lockdown to be effective as a mid laner, because like the champion just requires lockdown. He's best played with champions like Nautilus, um, like the kind of things that can make people like sit in his ultimate, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That is when the Rumble is best. And so, but the Rumble also really struggles when people can build magic resist, right?
Right.
But AD junglers fucking suck, and AD junglers have no lockdown as well.
Right.
Like you're playing an AD jungler, you're playing Kindred, you're playing Graves, you're playing Kha'Zix, you're
Hmm.
playing like I don't know, like I guess like even Jarvan. Jarvan doesn't really have lockdown in this day and age when everything has a dash. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to justify putting Rumble in one of your team compositions, and it's
I
also
see.
hard to make it good. So, but the Rumble jungle on the other hand has countless strengths that make him like pretty invaluable, and also like Rumble's ultimate cooldown gets disgustingly low very quickly,
Yeah.
and that is infinitely easier to abuse when you're a jungler.
That makes sense. Because you're always
So
somewhere useful that you can
yeah,
use it.
you
Yeah.
never really get like lane locked.
Yeah.
Which occurs to Rumble mid like a fair bit like later on. Of course Rumble mid kind of shits at priority
Yeah.
in the early game, but later on he can't like uh, force that, you know?
That makes a lot
So
of sense. And so the answer really is Rumble is good in the right team, which
yeah, of course.
in the end
And
is basically like every champion.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
there are spots where Rumble mid will also be an excellent pick, but
Hmm.
it's hard to justify with the state of jungle meta.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's not that, I do think it's really dishonest to use win loss ratio as a judge of whether or not
I
it's
don't think
good.
it's I don't think it's necessarily dishonest. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that far. I just think it's I just think it means less without context.
Sure.
Um, like, and then you can also take the context of what the solo queue means, and the Rumble mid probably is more effective in solo queue if the win
Hmm.
rate is that high.
Hmm.
Like, the infinite priority and all of the things that make Rumble jungle good probably still apply to Rumble mid, right?
Hmm.
So he's probably like, I mean, he objectively is a very strong power pick in solo queue, and like those things just don't really apply that much to competitive League of Legends.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say so far as dishonest. I just think it's a bit misleading with that context.
Hmm. That makes
I,
sense.
I I think it's definitely it's like it's I don't know. I don't want to speak too much into it because I haven't watched his most recent video, but
Hmm.
like the context is extremely important, and looking at statistics in isolation is pretty valueless without it.
Yeah. That's fair. I think it's a fair assessment of what he said as well. Great. Do you guys have any other questions for Pabu before I let him go? Hey, thank you again so much for taking time. Good luck in the rest of the event. I apologize. I had to wear a Cloud9 sweater, but if you guys send me some Pentanet stuff, I'll be rocking that too. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed watching you guys play. It's you can tell that the team plays with a lot of heart. Like, even the pick of your initial song and everything. We're going home is like, I think it's just funny. It's very tongue in cheek, and I'm glad you guys made it through. So,
Thank you, thank you.
yeah.
It's been a good time.
All right. Well, good luck with the rest of the event, and I look forward to watching all your games.
Sweet.
All right, Pabu. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.